What's up, new guy? My name's James, better known as the Degenerate 75. And if you've never heard of me, well, let me go ahead and tell you. I'm a partner over at ShipIt, and I have quite the obsession with a little thing called PGA DFS. And I've been playing it for, unbelievably, I just realized, 10 years. And I want to start to spread the word to everybody else. Some of you watching this already know everything about PGA DFS, and I bet you're still going to find some useful nuggets in here. Some of you maybe started playing it last year. I promise you there's some stuff you're going to get out of this you need. And some of you have just started playing or may not know what PGA DFS is, and I am here to teach you about it because I believe in one word when it comes to PGA DFS, and it's a little word called sustainability. So many people get into this not knowing what they're doing, getting into bad contests, overspending their bankroll, and then busting out by April, and then it's like, well, golf sucks. I ain't never playing that again. Whereas if you could just learn to be sustainable with your bankroll, you can survive at PGA DFS. I promise you can. I'm not saying you're going to win. I'm saying you can stay within a reasonable amount of even and give yourself long enough to hit a big one. It all starts with a bankroll. Ask yourself, how much money are you willing to play this year for PGA DFS? Lay it out, and then don't spend all your money in January or February or March or whenever you start playing, right? Also think about this, because this is what the point of this show is think about the different ways in which you can diversify your portfolio. Don't just play week-long DraftKings every week. There are things out there that you can gain an edge at, like props, which we will talk about, PGA Best Ball, which we will talk about, Showdown at PGA, which we will talk about. And I promise you, all three of those things have better EV, expected value, than you will ever get from Classic, aka kick in the nuts, that you play at week-long on DraftKings, okay? So you need to understand that. And you need to be able to diversify your portfolio and have some money that you give to all of these things, and know that in any given week, you're probably going to lose because you're gambling. But the point is to keep your losses to a minimum by picking good contests, by playing the ownership game. We're doing all these little things you need to do to be competitive at PGA DFS that I'm going to try to teach you on this show, because so many people out there can give you their stupid fucking picks and plays, but not very many people out there are trying to teach you how to play the game. And that's what the big guy right here is all about, is how to play the game. So what we're going to do today is this show is I am going to try to teach you other ways in which you can diversify your portfolio of where you're spending your money, and also how you can play the game and how you can manage your bankroll and how you can learn how to become a sustainable player. And if you do that, I'm going to warn you, PGA DFS will get in your blood, and before you know it, NFL will be right back, and you can play NFL because PGA is perfectly married to the NFL schedule. And you know what? You might even win a few bucks and might have an NFL season covered if you do this PGA stuff just right. Okay. So that is the point of this show. I hope you enjoy. I have so many guests. Well, I have 3 guests. Tambo is going to double up, and we're going to talk about all the things that I've already previewed. And of course, I will be working in the sustainability. I hope it helps you. Here you go. Enjoy the show. All right, my first guest, my partner, my brother over at ShipIt Nation. His name's ToeTagginTambo. I'm going to bring him in to talk about, well, the best PGA DFS sport there is, probably Classic. I don't know if it's the best. I lied. I like Showdown more. But here's what I can tell you. It's definitely the most popular. So we're going to lead off the show talking about a little PGA DFS Classic, which for all of you that don't know, is called week long. And what you really need to know is the big guy calls it kicking the nuts, because after you've done it long enough, you'll realize you're going to get a lot of kicking the nuts from it. So here we go. Tambo, how are you doing today, brother?
On an ice pack, brother. I've had a lot of kick in the nuts with PGA, but we're not there yet. I'm excited about it. I'm doing well, back into the swing of things with the PGA season. And I love PGA DFS. It's been, at the bottom of my heart for a long time, because when I used to play, even working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, whatever it was, and when I was in sales, all those other jobs and whatnot, I always played NFL DFS. And then I loved that it wrapped into PGA DFS, kind of like the Waste Management Phoenix Open, which I've been to 5 times now. That was the weekend where it's like, okay, this is full conversion. Now in the weeds heavily, we've got the Sentry, the Sony Open, the Amex, the Farmers Insurance. I'm getting involved in all of it with all these course rotations, things like that. But it's a very fun DFS sport. It can be a little bit intimidating in the beginning, but that's what we're here for. Hopefully to help guide you through that and make it better so that you can enjoy it as much as we do.
Yeah, you want to be led by sweaty tryhards. And here's what I realized. I was looking at the calendar, entering my 10th season of PGA DFS. I was like, I cannot believe I've been doing this for 10 years now. And not all of those have been 10 years of being the guy that knows everything about PGA DFS and tries to teach you guys. I was you once, and I was like, oh man, I'm just, Pat Mayo said, play Jason Kokrak. Got to play Jason Kokrak. I was that guy. I don't even know who the hell Jason Kokrak is, but this guy on a podcast said play him. So what we're trying to do is trying to settle down that intimidation a little bit and teach you guys a little bit about PGA DFS. If you're a pro or you've been playing for a long time, well, there's still going to be plenty of shit for you to get out of this video. So let's get going. First of all, let's just lead with this. Why do you think that Classic, like kicking the nuts week-long PGA DFS, why do you think that it is the most popular form of DFS that we see for PGA? It dwarfs everything else, Tambo.
Yeah, I think it's just, some of the, again, we already talked a little bit about the intimidation. I think that's going to come more when we get to actually picking the golfers and people maybe not knowing because there's so many to pick from. But from a DFS play standpoint, I don't know if there's an easier sport where, in NASCAR, for example, you pick 6 NASCAR drivers, but then it's like, oh, but somebody told me there's place differential, there's this, there's dominators. There's more factors to it. In golf, PGA DFS, you can literally click six names into a lineup, and you're going to have an hour somewhere within the week. We do a ton of free shows over at Ship It Nation. You're able to take in at least something. You'll pick up on process. You'll pick up on roster construction and ideas and concepts. But realistically, if you knew nothing, you still can go plug in 6 golfers, cheer for your lineup, and you have the cut sweat. You have the late withdrawal sweat. Hopefully none of those happen to you. You have the cut sweat on Friday, which is the best in all of DFS, in my opinion. And then you've got the weekend ahead with 2 more full rounds and how it all shakes out. And you add in things like weather, all these other factors, just make it a ton of fun. I think it's the best sport from that perspective. It's just easy for people to build and get excited about it.
Hey, new guy, the cut sweat is like at golf, halfway through, half the field usually goes. Now, sometimes we don't have cuts, but at most of the events, you're going to see cuts, all right? Look, I know you know this other guy, but there's new guys here. Chill the fuck out, all right? Also, I want to add a couple thoughts to that. I think part of what has made Classic so popular is like the old rotisserie chicken commercials from back when we were kids. You just set it and you forget it. There's no late swap or anything at PGA DFS. Once your lineup's in, it's in, which outside of like Hideki withdrawing or Louis Oosthuizen withdrawing on you and killing your lineups is kind of great because you don't got to sit there and be like, oh, I got to go late swap because I got off to a bad start like you do with the NFL. It's set it and forget it, and you get 4 days of entertainment out of it, 4 days of a sweat, hopefully, if you make enough guys through the cut. And I think that's just why the format's always going to be so popular. Even though I think that there's a bigger edge at Showdown, I get why people prefer week-long over Showdown, and I get why PGA DFS is growing compared to NBA, NHL, MLB, is because you get to breathe. You agree with all that, or am I going off the rails here?
No, I think you're good. And there was another good, it doesn't fully relate, but it kind of does, like the Tiger Woods quote from back in the day. Even playing real golf, it's because people can actually relate. His line was, I can't dunk from the free throw line, Michael Jordan-esque in basketball, but I can go out and recognize that when there's water in front of me on a golf course and I have to hit a shot, everybody that has that shot does have a little bit of butterflies in their stomach. And with PGA DFS, if you're a golf fan, it makes it even easier because you already know what the game is about. You can tune in. When you tune in, you can watch those shots and then see how they help or hurt, hopefully help your lineup. So yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that's the key. Set it, forget it. No late swap, no additional pieces. Then you can take it a step further and say, somewhere like Ship It Nation with you and I and the rest of our great team, where you can then dig into almost the chess game of it, where there is more factors to finding edges and finding angles of attack in.
All right, here's something I know, because I get a lot of messages from people that I get them into PGA DFS. They're like, I just heard you talk, and I was like, shit, man, I want to play PGA DFS. Just listen to this guy. And the most common thing they always tell me after they've tried it out for a couple weeks is it's intimidating trying to deal with all these players they've never heard of. I mean, if you've never played PGA DFS, you have no idea who Tyrrell Hatton is, Errol Hatton, and like you don't know these guys, right? So like, what would you have any advice on like what to tell new people about when you're trying to learn the 125 golfers who already have their card on the PGA, not to mention the Euro guys that come over, the live guys that come in for the majors? Like, do you have any advice on like getting over the intimidation of learning all these players?
Biased or unbiased? Because have you heard of the Stone? I mean, we'll probably get there, but I would say, in general, it is going to be tricky. That could be sort of a stepping stone, but just knowing too, one thing I would definitely say, if you don't know, because for the new guys out there, like you said, the 144, 156, 120, whatever it ends up being, you can take a lot of that down. There is a lot of extra fat, if you will. It's not really shaming these other golfers to say they suck or you don't need them, whatever, but more so you don't need to play them all. You would want to have some projections, some ownership, some ideas about how you can build out. And then obviously just taking in some of the content. That's the fun in it. The more overtime you can get it. We probably make it a little bit more intimidating when we throw all the nicknames on these guys as well, because then it's like, okay, well, who the heck is that guy? But in reality, it's just fun and it's part of the game. The other nice thing is you have all week. That was, it stems from the last question into this question. You don't need to be intimidated as much when you have, Monday content that you can find out about the field when it drops. It comes out usually Sunday, maybe the week before for the earlies of who's going to be in it. But you'll be able to know who's in the field, and then you have 2 or 3 days that you can dig in as much or as little as you want and find these things out. So that, you can get past that one pretty quick, and then it's fun to sort of jump into the, I know what that nickname means now, or I know who that guy is that he's shitting on or hoping it does something good for him. So I like that aspect of it as well.
I'll admit, I have a problem with too many nicknames. But here's what we can do is I have finally created this thing called the DGen scorecard, which has been an idea I've had for the past 3 years. And I finally got it done. I've taken all the major golfers in the world, and not only have we given you their baseline stats of which they're good at, so you can just have a quick reference to know if they're good and what they're, what they excel at, rather it's their putting, rather it's the type of putting, the wind, short courses, off the tee, anything you want to know. But here's what's really cool on DGen scorecard. I have player notes for every single player, what they're good at, what they're bad at. And these are things that I have just accumulated over 10 years of watching these motherfathers. This isn't something you're going to find anywhere else. These are my notes, and it's called the DGen scorecard. And I have it right here. And I'm even going to put all my nicknames next to these guys because so many people get a little confused by all my nicknames. So it will literally have everything you need. And this is just going to be another awesome thing that we offer over at Ship It for no additional cost. This is just when you're a member over at Ship It, get the PGA package. This is what you get. I've been working on it. People are so excited about it, and it is out, and you are going to enjoy it. All right, getting back to the next question. Let's see. Tambo, how do you find an edge at week long? We've already talked about actually, you know what? Let me come back to that one. What are your expectations for winning at week long? Is this something you should expect to win at every week or every other week, and it's just a print fest and it's the easiest sport in the world to beat, or what has been your experience?
No. I've been on record with this plenty of times, and very high variance. I don't care what anybody says. I know some people have had better results in it, or one big hit that they lean on, so they say into it. I've had a bunch of 50K, 100K scores at this. It's not to brag. It's just to say it's out there to go and get them, but they're not happening back to back to back. It's really a challenging sport when it comes to variance. It can be something as simple as a 6-foot putt. I remember one, Joel Damon needs a 4-footer to make this cut. And if he makes it, it helps. If he misses, it hurts. Like it's good. What's good for someone is bad for someone else, and vice versa. You have to really have a good mindset to play this sport, but you want to be able to put yourself in the position more often than not. And hopefully that's something that we can help you with when it comes down to different style of roster construction, looking for those pivots, some of the high leverage plays or high upside options. So you can set yourself up for success. I will say, it's another segment that we'll get to, but when you get to Showdown, that's the other nice thing about golf is sometimes it's not your fault. You don't control it. The golfer misses a 5-foot putt that you need that would have given you a really good 6-6 on a Friday. You can hate them, and maybe you do for a few minutes, and that's okay, but don't tweet them or tag them or anything like that. But I'm just saying, you do get round 3. You do get round 4. You can make it up. I've had Sung Jae Im withdraw on me on the main slate, and everyone knows I love playing Sung Jae. And then I had my best Showdown weekend of the season after that without it. I said, hey, maybe it's just I need Sung Jae out of my life to be able to win money at this thing. So you can go through ups and downs, but it's just part of the game, just like any other DFS sport. You have to be realistic and know that that's how it's going to be.
And a fun fact, whenever you miss a 5-footer on Friday to miss the cut, we call that the Keith Mitchell. The Keith Mitchell is what we call that, okay? All right, last thing I want to end on. The edge, okay? Because we just talked about it. You're not going to win every week. And really, PGA DFS, I truly believe this. I'm going to go on a tangent on my stream one of these weeks about it, is I don't think that you can beat PGA DFS with just picks and plays, right? Oh, I listened to this podcast, and this guy told me, you got to play Ben Coles this week. What the fuck ever? Okay, if you're just going off people's picks, yes, you might have some good picks occasionally. I'm not saying don't listen to it. Matter of fact, I like people's narratives and picks, but it's like the 5th most important thing I listen to. There are ways to gain an edge at this game, and I feel like if you're not trying to play for the edge, you're not going to get there. Tambo, what are some of the edges that you think that can be used to actually gain an edge at PGA DFS?
Yeah, one which I'll say for you, but obviously the weather thing. I think what's funny is people have more and more people have caught on to the weather angle, talking about playing a wave edge. I'll hit it up for the new guys right quick and let you take it when we go to you. But just, they play usually for most tournaments, you're going to see a morning wave and then an afternoon wave, and then they flip it on the Friday in round 2. So if there's going to be a ton of wind on a Friday afternoon, but the rest is pretty clean, we may want to get in on just playing Thursday PM golfers that will also go out Friday in the morning and avoid said wind. So that's important to remember. But what also is important to remember is, even though everybody thinks, oh, everyone knows about that now, that's dried up. I saw in the swing season that it was like 20% of the field played the weather edge. That is the swing season when only the biggest DGens and the highest amount of players that are focusing on that are in on it. When you get to this regular season and the casuals hop in and all that, it might be 5 to 10% of the field. And even if it goes up and it's 10 to 12 and you say, Tambo, you were wrong, it went way up, 80 to 90% of the field is not playing the edge, and it's typically there. So weather is a big one. I also think you nailed it, the picks and plays. I obviously am famous for, talking about process and doing the tidbits and stuff where there is picks in there. But my focus is always going to be talking about the process of roster construction. What are other people doing? It's not who you play, it's how you play them, how you can play. Okay, Scotty Scheffler's 30% this week. It sucks. Everyone's playing the same game, though. How can we be different with our Scotty Scheffler lineups? There's a reason he's 30% and wins every tournament. So we have to figure out how to play him different than the field to still find leverage to find our way to the top. So the picks and plays can only get you so far. They're a result of what ends up on the winning lineup. Oh, all those picks hit and he won. No, he won because he set himself up for this, and those picks were part of what got him or her to the top. So got to keep our ladies involved as well. We want everybody playing PGA DFS. But I'll kick it over to you. I think those are just a couple that stand out to me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's the big four, right? The big four finding an edge of this. It's weather, which is the most important. It's ownership, which is behind that. It's roster construction, how you build your lineup, the types of ranges in which you find your players and how you can get different than everybody. And then, of course, there's getting good projections, and you need good projections. And if you don't know, the best place to find like all of those things I'm talking about is right here on the Stone. There's no, everybody has their kinks. I'm a weather slut. I'll be the first to admit it. If you watch the stream every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, that's in the Lord's time zone, I'll give you the most updated weather. But for over at Ship It, where we have this thing right here called the Stone, they're going to get updated weather all the way up to the last minute. They're going to get my projections not only for the Classic, but we do this for week long, and we do the ownership. You can see we even color it and let you know who is getting a little out of control with ownership and stuff like that. These are just the tools we offer you, because to tell you these are the things you need to do and then offer you no tools to help you, analyze it, well, then we're not helping you at all. And our goal at Ship It is to help you and do it at the most, affordable price. So I highly encourage you to check that out. All right, Tambo, let's fit any closing thoughts you have on Classic, because I'm cutting this into two spots. We're talking about Showdown later because I think it deserves its own segment.
Yeah, I would just say, just put it all together, everything at least that I talked about today, mixing in with what you mentioned, all the great points you've added on, there is edges to it. There's certainly angles of attack. It is the best sport. I think if you play NFL DFS, we know that's the holy grail. Everybody plays it. It's awesome. But if you're a family person, you're working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you're working in sales, late hours, early hours, on the road, whatever it might be, it's the sport you have time with. It's the opposite season of NFL DFS. It has all the big prize pools. It's an easy game to play. Set it and forget it. There's follow-up with Showdown, which we're going to get to later. And there's tools and edges like we talked about over at Ship It Nation that you can use to your advantage. And that's why you're seeing so many Ship It Nation logos atop the leaderboards if you are in the streets for Classic or Showdown. So my second favorite sport after NFL DFS, it might be your favorite, but it is the best combo pack of having the two for me.
Yeah, it's just married to the NFL schedule. It's perfect, right? Whenever NFL's dying off, PGA picks up, and right as PGA dies off, it's NFL season. They're married together. Tambo, thank you for your time, but I got to talk to you again in like 2 minutes, so I'm not going to thank you for anything. We are done with this segment. Let's move on to the next one. We're on to the second part of ways that you can be in playing PGA DFS in a more sustainable way, because I want you guys, I'm trying to grow the community here, and we want you to be around for a while. And something that I have had success with in the past, and I know a lot of people have, if you want to be a sweaty try hard and get down in some statistical weeds, is prop bets. Is it true DFS? Not really, but it is definitely DFS adjacent, and they are connected. And I am bringing in the guy that I think is one of the sharpest dudes when it comes to props. It is also, if you don't know, going to be hosting all of the Showdown shows at Ship It Nation this year. A man's a saint for doing that, for the big guy who's been a little sick, if you don't know. So pumped to have him. Luke, how you doing, my brother?
Doing well. Excited to talk some prop bets. It's I like DFS, have some passion for it, but prop bets are a whole lot of fun too.
I feel the same way. I love DFS more than I love prop bets, but you know what? I probably have a higher all-time winning percentage at prop bets than I do at DFS, just because the edge is bigger, right? I just have to beat the house instead of beating 100,000 slapdicks who play Patrick Rogers and Rory McIlroy, and then they chip in for Eagle on 18 when they haven't done shit all day. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little off the rails here. So let's talk prop bets. First of all, you got to remember, I've got people watching this that literally gamble for a living, and I've got people watching this that are like, who the hell is this guy talking? I'm going to watch this show because I find him entertaining. What the hell is golf? So just in general, what are prop bets when it comes to golf? And what are the common things that you do on prop bets? What are people betting on these prop bets at golf?
Yeah, in NFL, you got your anytime touchdowns, receiving yards, all that jazz. In golf, it's strokes, it's birdies made and bogeys made. Those would be your main props that you can bet on. You've got fairway props. They'll let you bet on how many greens regulation a player hit. And luckily, we have data on all of that at our disposal. The one thing about golf that we don't have a shortage of would be data to work with. We've got the shot link data, shots gained. That's all well documented. But all of these other categories are also well documented by the PGA Tour. So it's a lot of those kind of categories, a lot of the fundamentals of golf, and they're a whole lot of fun to bet on.
Yeah, and this is the one thing that I think keeps PGA really staying above is they're the ones not only that has all this data, but they share it with everybody. So we're able to go through it. If for all of you new guys that don't know, like you go look at the Euro Tour, you go look at Live and stuff like that, they don't have this data. They have very generic data. And whenever you really want to get down in the weeds and try to find a statistical edge, a lot of times you can't do it simply because that data doesn't exist or is not shared with us. And this is a big thing that the PGA does. So we're talking specifically PGA prop betting here. All right. So if we are going to want to do these prop bets, like what are like the sites that we need to be hitting? Like what are the more popular ones that like people do most of the prop betting for PGA or, or who offers the best odds? Like what are the most popular ones?
So the ones that a lot of people think of, especially if they're playing DFS, would be Prize Picks and Underdog. You're going to see like a lot of ads for those on TV and whatnot. Those are available, I'd say like 35 to 40 states a piece out there for each site. If those aren't available in your state, it's probably because you have legalized betting anyways. So whether that would be a FanDuel, DraftKings, all of those sort of sites, they'll be offering things like strokes and birdies for most events. But if you don't have those available, not the quote unquote legal sports betting like a lot of people have, sites like Underdog or Prize Pick should be available in your state. So pretty much regardless of what situation you're in, especially if you're in the United States, you're going to have one of these sites available to bet on.
And when you bring that up, the traditional sports books are probably a lot easier to single bet a prop, right? I just want to take that Bryson's going to shoot below 70 strokes today, right? I don't know why I chose Bryson because he's on Live, but let's say it's a major or whatever, right? So what do you prefer? Do you think it's better to do these single bets, or are you more of a parlay guy, which we're going to see on sites like Underdog and stuff like that? And for my new guys, a parlay is when you put 2, 3, multiple bets together and you get bigger payouts, but you tend to have to hit all or most of them to collect on that parlay. Luke, what do you think is better when it comes to props, and why do you think that?
If I had a market where I could bet straight props, I would do it a vast majority of the time, just one bet at a time, as opposed to doing anything that's in a parlay. But down here in Florida, that's where I'm from, we only have one book available, Hard Rock Bet, and they don't offer any of those sort of props. So I'm hoping that at some stage they open that up. But yeah, I'm a straights guy if you can like go that method. So if you're in one of the states with legalized sports betting, take advantage of that if you can. If you can parlay, though, there are advantages to that. So we'll talk about correlation, especially like when we talk about how many legs you should be running in every slip. But the correlation aspect, you have to have multiple props together. So if it's going to be a real windy day, you want to take advantage of that out there with a bet. It's nice to have 4 or 5 legs to work with. But if you're just talking about finding one data point that you think is an inefficient line that you can go out there and take advantage of, give me the straight bet all day.
Well, I think you just said the most important word of this entire segment, which is correlation. Because whenever it comes to prop bets, it is the one that golf prop bets specifically, it is the one thing where we can find correlation. Yes, it's a bunch of individuals out there playing, but they're playing in the same conditions. And like, there's so many things that can factor how these guys do. Rather, the wind is blowing. Did they get rain last night? Is the course playing soft? Is it playing firm and fast? We have scores from the previous day. We have these guys, how they shot, right? We can look at like, were they hitting the ball well? Were they hitting approaches well? Were they putting well? So we can look at all these things and make really good projections on how they're going to play the next day. So like correlation, does that make you any more likely to want to play parlays? And is there any more correlations that I didn't hit on right there with my million examples I just gave and probably stepped on your answer?
Nope. You're 100% spot on with that, because and you got to think pin locations too, right? Like that can be a day with really tough pin locations. If you can pick up on some of these data points that you think are moving one direction or the other, you enter 4 or 5 guys in that direction. It's not going to work out every time. There's always going to be the, guy that goes off when the scoring average is 4 over par. Like that's always going to end up happening. But if you do it in the long run, you can see a lot of success doing so. In fact, so much so that these prop sites have started to try and eat back against that correlation. They notice that a lot of their sharps, a lot of people that are taking money from them are taking advantage of whether it's tough weather, tough pin locations, course firming up, or like you said, rain overnight. All of those things historically, you go out there, you take advantage of that. I mean, it could be an absolute money pit. I mean, you think about it this way. At the Masters, for example, when Hideki went out there and won, scoring average went from like 2 over par to under par, nearly an entire stroke under.
Just because of a little rain delay.
Yeah, and a rain delay. It was like an hour and a half delay, right? And you knew that was coming. If you could see that coming, you could look at the weather forecast, which, by the way, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do. You do that, you could make a ton of money if you can foresee that sort of thing. So it's a sport where there's a lot of data to take advantage of, and the correlation aspect, especially like Prize Picks Underdog. I think that's why people love betting on them.
And I think a lot of people watching this are probably DFS players who haven't dipped into the prop market as much. And some of the things we might be talking about may seem a little overwhelming, but these are things you're going to learn in probably a month of betting it. You know, like tough pin locations. You're like, well, how am I supposed to know if it's tough? Well, first of all, Luke's going to be doing a show over it, going over them, telling you if they're tough or not. And then you're like, well, how do I know how that's going to affect them? Well, tough pin locations are going to make guys less likely to fire at the pins. So there's going to be fewer birdies made. So you might want to take the under on birdies because guys aren't going to fire at pins that are right next to water. Right? They're just not going to do it. They're going to hit it 40 feet to the left, and they're just going to two putt for their par. That's what they're going to do. So knowing little secrets like that, you'll pick up on them quickly, and prop betting becomes very not intimidating once you get into the weeds, right? And if you're like, well, where do I find all the data? Well, I can promise you Luke will be sharing it on the show. And then don't forget, I still have the best tool in all of PGA DFS called the Stone. You come over here and you can see, oh my God, this guy was killing it with approach today. Maybe I should look at him for birdies tomorrow. Right? Or what time does he tee off? Because I want him out there in the morning. And if the morning has better conditions, we'll have a color coded for you. So I'll have everything you need over at Ship It to help you get through it. Right? Even though we're a DFS site at Ship It, all this stuff on here, very, very useful for prop betting. So anyways, last one. Like, how do you find an edge? Like, I mean, I guess we've talked about it, but is there any other edges to find at prop betting that makes it different than DFS?
Yeah, so I have like a little 3-step process I like to use for prop betting. Number one is got to get a baseline for the course. So having a database available where you can quickly see like what the scoring average was at a given course, how many birdies per round being made, that's huge. Having reliable data is the first step. Next, you got to check the weather. When you're going out there finding the weather, that's going to impact those averages. If it's going to be a really calm day, maybe the scoring gets a little bit better than what you've historically seen. If it's going to be a little bit windier, then could move the opposite direction. And then the last step is having an idea of player stats, which, as we already mentioned, the PGA Tour does a really good job of giving us all that data for free that we can all just look up on their website. So that is going to be taken care of for you. That's easy. The first one, finding the stat averages, you can go on ESPN and they have it all posted on there. So it's not even like you have to go digging super far to find a lot of that data. And the weather, you know, you just look up the weather forecast out there for the golf course in the area. So it takes some work. You've got to go out there, do some legwork, but you do that and you're going to have all the tools you need to go out there and find an edge. So I think it's best done by starting with those averages, and then you do your analysis based on that average. So if
you're going to be doing your own prop show too, right? Like you'll do a
Yes.
standalone prop show. So like, there's no reason to not go to GS Luke's YouTube page, subscribe, and like be watching. Like if you want to get into the props, you got to do it. And here's the dirtiest little secret I could tell you about why I think prop betting is better than well, actually DFS is better, but one thing that prop bets is better than DFS is you can play at any price, right? So many people in the DFS industry like to shame. Like I call it entry fee shame. Oh, you only played $1 worth of lineups. Who gives a fuck how much you play?
Yeah.
If you're having fun with DFS, it's your world. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Playing $1 and winning $10, that's 10x your money. Let me tell you a secret. I never win 10x my money because I play such high stakes that like winning 10x is just usually never an option for me, right? So like winning 10x your money, getting a good sweat and having fun, that's all that matters. Screw anybody who says anything else. And on prop sites, you just go, you can bet $1 and you can have a sweat all day watching your guys and not have to worry about like people being like, oh, you only played $1. And as you get better at it, then those $1 bets can become $10 bets. Exactly. And you can grow it, and it's awesome. And I think that is one of the great things about prop betting, and it can be part of a sustainable, which is the point of the show, a sustainable bankroll that can help you get through the year. And by, April, you're not having to quit DFS for the rest of the year because your wife is seeing your credit card statements because you're blowing through all of it, listening to all these assholes at DFS giving their shitty picks that don't even fucking play. All right, enough on my tangent. Luke, His name is Gsluke. He is he has his own thing, and it's awesome. If you're not signed up, you should. You got to start with a YouTube show, and you'll watch it for 5 minutes and be like, all right, I need this guy in my life. But he's also going to be helping us over at Ship It. So he's part of that team too. He's one of my brothers. Luke, is there anything else I missed? I truly appreciate your time and your expertise here on these props.
That's it. I am glad to be able to help. Prop betting is a whole lot of fun, and I think if you guys try it out, you'll have some fun with it too.
Awesome. I think that's it, guys. We're moving on to Best Ball. All right, we're on to the next segment, which is very DFS adjacent in the PGA DFS world. It's called Best Ball. Yes, you've probably heard of Best Ball, and I bet you've probably even done some Best Ball lineups. But I bet it was for another sport. I bet you did it for NFL. But they have it for golf, and it is pretty damn fun at golf, too. It's getting a little bit better each year. The prizes are getting a little bit bigger. And honestly, we're going to talk about this in just a minute. I think there might be a little overlay out there, which when we're talking sustainability and we're talking getting our money in plus EV, there's nothing more plus EV than overlays. So let me bring in somebody that knows the best ball streets, if not as well as me, better than me. His name is the Model Maniac, which you should know by now. I call him Byron. He's my personal friend. How you doing today, brother?
Hello, James. Thank you so much. And what a great intro. If not more than me, better than me. That's something I didn't ever think I'd hear from you on a show. But yeah, we are blood, sweat, and tears into PGA baseball. So let's chat some.
Yes, definitely a sweaty tryhard, the Model Maniac. Over here at Underdog, as you can see, they've got the big $10, the scramble, and it is like legit 20% full with 10 days to go. There is probably going to be an overlay, right? And if you're like, by the way, if you're going to sign up over at Underdog, make sure to use my code Degenerate75, and you get like a deposit match bonus, right? So like if you go put in $100, I think it's like 50, or they're double it to 200, and you can get you can easily put 10, 20 lineups in this bad boy, and half of them are going to be free, and you're playing with an overlay. That's some very plus money. How do you feel about this scramble, Byron? Because this is the main one we want to talk about, right? $50,000 to first place, which is 10%, which is already a good sign. It's a very well-constructed contest. What are your thoughts on this scramble?
I love it. It's massive. It's a huge player pool. So I think you can really get aggressive with how you're building your things. And it's going to be a wonderful overlay. So we've got even bigger edges going on now, So if you're drafting the right way, you got a big edge with the scramble. Also, I would suggest you get into the little scramble first. Just if it's your very first time doing this, just knock the rust off there with a $3 entry for sure to start off, just a few of them.
And notice it's filling up pretty quick, but I bet they'll put up a secondary one where you can go practice drafting and maybe get comfortable with everything and then jump into the big scramble, right? Or just the regular scramble, I should call it. So yeah, that's great advice right there. The next question I have is let's just jump right into actually I'm already skipping. My mind is everywhere. Do you know anybody else that's doing best ball for PGA, Byron, or are we just with Underdog?
I saw Ian with real good picks, I think, is doing something. It's tricky, if you're not putting a lot of time into this thing, you're not likely going to have good stuff out there. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, if you don't know, if all of this is overwhelming, you're I wouldn't even know where to start. There's only two people out there I know that have actual a guide, a cheat sheet to help you through all this, where we rank everybody and make it make sense for you. And it just happens to be these two faces you see right here. We have it over at Ship It. This is my third year in a row to put out a best ball stone that ranks all the players, shows you how likely they are to play. So there's going to be that over at Ship It. But I got to tell you, this sweaty tryhard right here put out one that is tremendous, and you're definitely going to want to check his out too. I'll pump his tires here at the end, but the Model Maniacs is very good too. You can't go wrong with either of them, because getting different in these tournaments, I think, is a big part of it. Do you agree with that, Mr. Model Maniac?
You have to, especially if you're doing 150 drafts. You're only going up against 5 other people, so there's only 60 players being taken every single draft.
Right.
We're going to have so many dupes in that final pod, so making sure you get different is essential.
Yeah, exactly. That's such an important point to make. I don't want to step on the next thing. Let's talk about roster construction. Okay. Roster construction is so important in this, because what most people do is they just go off of ADP, right? Which is stands for average draft position, right? I assume Scotty Scheffler's number 1 this year. I have not done a draft. Sure. I like to wait, and I'll literally spam 150 of them in 3 days. I'm a sicko like that. I want to get all the information I can before I do my draft. So I will be waiting up until the last minute, and I'll be spamming literally 5, 6, 7 of them at a time. And here's what I can tell you. Roster construction is where you win or lose these things. And if you're just going off of that average draft position, you're going to end up with the same roster as everybody else. It's just like when we play DFS every week and every person on your roster is 25% owned. That's a donkey lineup, right? First of all, it's not going to win. And even if it does, you're going to share it with 60 other donkeys that built the same lineup. So don't do that. You want to get different. What are some ways to get different, Byron, that you can like gain an edge at best ball?
So you can click the same names for the first 2 or 3 rounds because those are like the best guys available, pretty much the first 2 rounds. But then I said to Pat, if you do not have a lineup, once you're done picking your 10 dudes is gross, you haven't drafted correctly, you need 4, 5, 6, depending on how you build your team. Guys that aren't playing in signature events, you need 4 to 5 to 6 mediocre golfers playing in these tournaments because half of the events are majors and signature events. The other half, the easier tournaments, are non-signatures where all the jabronis will be playing, and you need those guys in order to bolster the other side of your roster.
And here's the beautiful part. You gave us the most perfect segue ever because the next thing I was going to ask you is about scoring. So many people that are going to try this out are from the DFS streets where they're used to position points. Oh, this guy got first. He gets me 30 points. That doesn't exist here. The scoring at best ball, so make sure you correct me if I'm lying, is for birdies. It is for eagles. It is straight just how much you are scoring, right? And we want guys who are playing in these easier events against worse competition who are going to score more points for us, right?
Bingo. And guess what? DraftKings scoring, -1 point for a double or worse. Underdog decided, you know what? Screw that. 3 minus points for a double, 7 for a triple, baby. So you're going to lose. If you go into the Open Championship and you have a guy just get caught in a bad wave, you could easily have, one guy that played the John Deere outscore 2 or 3 different people just on the Open Championship alone. So it's going to be fun. And often I've had people say, but this guy doesn't win. It's like, I don't care. He can finish 20th at the John Deere Classic and outscore the winner of the Open or the US Open or any major for that instance.
Because he can make 26 birdies and finish 20th place at the John Deere.
Exactly.
And by the way, Garrick Higo, rest in peace. I can't, now that I know that triple bogeys are worth -7, I can't play Garrick Higo. He's good for at least one every round.
Golf. Yeah, he's not even got his tour card, I don't think.
Oh, that makes me sad. I love Garrick Higo.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the first guy where I'm like, this is my showdown god right here. I love that guy.
Yeah, him and EVR.
Yeah. Some of those South Africans love to go frickin' nuke. All right, so that's an important point to remember there, guys. If you're gonna try this best ball, you got to remember that like the dudes who are playing the same number of tournaments are gonna probably get you more points than the studs, the scrubs are, because they're probably playing like John Deere and not playing in those signature events and those majors where courses just tend to be tougher, and tougher courses equal less birdies, which equals less points. Am I right?
I mean, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4, I think. So yeah.
And PGA best ball is so new. People don't know these strategies, right? Everybody's been playing PGA DFS. They know that when you play a guy at 40% ownership, that's usually pretty stupid, right? Especially if they're like a 7K guy. Everybody knows that. But people don't know this shit. Like it's so new. People don't know these things.
James, if you're doing a random draft and just clicking names, you'll likely only have 2 guys playing in Mexico, which is the first tournament of the second leg.
Mm-hmm.
It's, according to what I checked last year, the scoring average at Mexico was the lowest of all 7 in that second round. So if you want to do this right, you got to have Mexico guys in there. Mm-hmm. But guess what? The Mexico guys aren't playing the Century. They're not playing. So no one wants to click these names. But there are some gross ass names down there that you have to be clicking.
And you, once again, a world-class segue from I Do the Model Maniac. It is about advancing. This is best ball. Just like at NFL, you've got to advance, right? There's 4 cuts and 5 stages this year. Am I correct?
4 stages, 3 cuts.
As I said, 4 and 3. And it's just like best ball, right? We got to get through the regular season, which is going to be, I believe, the first 6 or 7 tournaments. And then it would be like getting to the first round of the playoffs. But here we're just going to call it leg 1. So if you don't get off to a good start in those first 6 weeks, you're not having 6 golfers put up points from every single one of those events. You're screwing yourself. You're thinking too long term, and you got to get through that first leg or the future doesn't matter, right? So break down the legs for me a little bit, Byron, when they are and the importance of factoring that in. Which is even more important at golf than I would say at NFL.
Absolutely. So we've got the Century, Sony, Amex, Farmers, Pebble, Waste Management, and Genesis in the first leg. Now, if you do not have 6 guys playing the Century, which is 4 guaranteed rounds, at the easiest course they will play all year. Remember Cam Smith, John Rahm broke scoring records 2 or 3 years ago around that venue. You're not going to advance. There's no way, because the amount of points you're sacrificing just by not having 1 extra roster spot there is going to be too much to overcome in that first round. So you have to have 6 guys, potentially 7.
How many golfers do you get? We've just been completely skipping over that.
You get 10 draft picks. So there's 60 guys that go off in a single draft, and that's essential there. Only 6 scores count. So that's what gets sucked in for the scoring. So basically my magic method here is just to try to optimize as many 6s in a start as possible, because you're guaranteeing yourself 2, sometimes 3 rounds, depending if they make the cut or not. And then you just avoiding massive holes in your roster. So it's
a guy that plays more frequently is as important, if not more important, than a better player.
Bingo. Rory McIlroy is not playing the Century. So you know what I'm saying. So your biggest bitchy tryhard over there, Rory not showing up for the easiest tournament of the year and only shows up to Pebble. So he's only going to be playing twice in the first 2 or so. Maybe he plays the Waste Management, but like, you're not going to get any output from him. Maybe if that sneaks through, you'll have a totally different build for the rest of the time, because that's when Rory's schedule really ticks up. But not having Rory there, it's a way to go, because he can really blackball you early on.
Mm-hmm. And then you're like, yeah, but he plays a lot. He's going to kill it later in the season. Well, your lineups may not be there because your first round pick has played 2 events in the first leg, and none of those lineups made it. So you got to be thinking about these things. You got to think about, how am I going to make it through each leg, and not simply how well my team's going to look in July, because your team ain't going to be there in July if they ain't playing in January, Bob.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so a guy like, I'm trying to just think, like Tigala, Eric Cole, those are like sluts that play like every week, right? Like those guys got to have, cheesesteak hoagie. He'll get out there, especially if there's craps tables anywhere near it.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, Waste Management, there's casinos all around. Cheesesteak hoagies in. So yeah, those guys become more valuable. So you got to weigh to yourself, like, I mean, the best players are ones that obviously play a lot and are good. That's the nutted what you want, right?
Making cuts. That to me is one of the most important things, because then you're just getting those 4 rounds. Doesn't matter if he's finishing 40th or 20th.
And not only are you getting 4 rounds, you're probably making a lot of birdies in those 4 rounds because you made the cut.
Exactly, baby.
Yeah. Not those triple fucking bogeys, Garrick Ego. All right. All right. Let's jump. You said something you wanted to touch on was, don't be an ADP sheep. Okay, average draft position sheep. We kind of touched on it, but it's such an important thing. Go ahead and summarize that, because I think it deserves to be hit on one more time, because I think it's the most defining thing that we could do this year to gain an edge.
Yeah, this is not coming from the model maniac. This is coming from the spreadsheet shepherd. So don't be a sheep. You make sure that once you get to the 4th, 5th round, you start clicking random ass names that fill the schedule up accordingly. If you've clicked 4 or 5 signature guys right away, there's going to be more signature guys at the top of your list because those are the best golfers. It doesn't help you, because you're going to just be overloading some schedules and underloading the others. And if you just keep clicking the same names as everybody else, everyone's going to be clicking like a zombie through the ADPs. Make sure that you're clicking different names, taking guys early, so that once you get to the final round, 4th leg, there's 262 other people in that contest. And you don't want to be trying to split 50K with 5 guys because you've all been ADP sheep and just click the same exact names.
This is perfect thing to end on. That leads me to thinking about exposure. I think before you jump into these, you should have an idea of guys that you like, okay, and guys that you like less. Like for me, I probably would never draft Rory, just because, well, first, I think he's a fucking loser. Second of all, because of what you said about how little he'll be playing in that first stretch, which is so important. I don't want to burn a 1st or 2nd round pick on a guy like that. But I think what you want to do is, like, think about guys that you like a lot and try to get more exposure to those guys by drafting them more. But also be aware that when you keep drafting the same dude over and over because he's ADP and you're getting a good value on him in the 5th round, that, like, you better really like that guy, because he could screw up all your lineups if you're drafting him in 80% of your lineups. What would you tell people when it comes to balancing your exposure?
This is a question I'm still grappling with, because I am a man that's currently sitting on 30 Tony Finau lineups of my 103. And my meniscus is in much better shape than Tony Finau's right now. So I'm very concerned. But Tony plays Mexico. So you know what I'm saying? Like, I was going on about Mexico. So I think I won't be drafting a single Tony Finau for the rest of my other 50. But I think a magic number is probably around about that 20% range. If you really fancy someone, you can go a little further than that. But with 150 lineups going into this thing, I think you're trying to just, if you guys have ever played Plants versus Zombies, you're basically just trying to get your plants to the end. Like, just don't let any zombies come through, and you just need to get advancing. And it doesn't matter who you play, it's how you play them. Obviously, Tambo's massive phrase there. And I think my biggest thing I've mentioned for this best ball situation is, you can project who's going to play where a lot easier than how well they're going to play. So I think exposure, you want to cap it to a certain degree, and then just make sure you have as many guys that provide you the same kind of output and volume as the other guy that you're subbing him in for, but just making sure that you have your bases covered, because you don't want one guy taking down 3/4 of your rosters.
And I want to end on a pro tip as a guy who's played a lot of PGA best ball and had some success with it. Before you ever do a draft, go find a bunch of scrubs you like. Okay, guys that you have a good feeling that are going to do good this year. And I promise you, those guys are literally getting drafted at like less than 1%, because you got to remember, only 60 guys are getting drafted. That's still like another like 85 guys on the tour who are not getting drafted in that. And you may really like Fishburne or whatever young up and coming star that's not getting drafted, or you just have a favorite player like, I don't know, Charlie Hoffman or some shit like that. Okay. And if that's the key, have a list of these scrubs, because you only get 30 seconds in these fast drafts and you don't want to be freaking out. So what you can do is you can have all your scrubs either go make your own rankings and put them higher, or just already have them queued up in the thing. So when you get down to that 7th, 8th, 9th round, you want to build your roster different. Boom, I'm taking all my scrubs I like, and you're not like freaking out trying to hurry up and find your guy. Just a little pro tip so you can get the guys that you want in those last rounds, and you don't forget about them because you only had 30 seconds to try to find somebody. Brainstorm it and then do your drafts, not the other way around, Bob. All right, any closing tips from the Model Maniac before I pump your tires and we get out of here?
I would say that if you're looking for those guys at the end, any DP World Tour guy, because a lot of jabronis that are just doing PGA best ball are PGA Tour, most likely just isolated to that particular tour. They're not going to be clicking on these DP World Tour dudes, who, by the way, have the best priority status of everyone that doesn't have a full PGA Tour card. They are literally next in line after 125. So they're going to be getting in. And Rasmus Højgaard gets in the first 2 signature events as the number 1 seed of DP World Tour. So I've been mashing his name. Let's just break his ADP, because I think he's a good option late.
The ladies of the night are going to be very happy to know that the Højgaard is there to protect them.
Yeah,
So
baby.
here's what, by the way, don't forget Degenerate75. If you're going to go sign up at Underdog, I hope that code still works. Degenerate75, that's pumping my tires. Let's first of all, thank Byron, my man, Model Maniac, for being here at the Model Maniac on Twitter. A much better Twitter follow than I am. That's for fuck sure. And
for long.
Don't forget, he's got his own little best ball ranking system, which I'm going to tell you, I don't use the term sweaty tryhard very hard, because most people in this industry are lazy fucks that aren't sweaty tryhards. This man is, and I have proof. It is his ranking sheet, and to try to do these best balls without some type of cheat sheet, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And the only 2 I know that are any good are his and mine. So go check them both out. I think they are both worth the purchase and will give you such a leg up at trying to do this. And don't forget to go check him out at Rotoballer, where he also has shit over there. That guy is everywhere. He's moving up in this world. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate your time, Mr. Model Maniac. You got anything you want to tell the people before I let you out?
That's all, bud. Just want to thank you for having me. It's awesome to have done. This is our first show I think we've done together solo. We've been on other shows with other Jeff Feinbergs in the mix, but James, has been an awesome time hanging out with you, talking some awesome strategy stuff, and just wishing you all the best for the future, my friend. I know with all your health and things, I'm wishing you just everything, just God damn it, just sending all my love.
Appreciate you, brother. Guys, this is just another way to add to the PGA DFS world. Enjoy it. Diversify your portfolio. Have some ways to get in your money plus EV. And with this thing not filling and having the tools that me and Byron are offering you, this is one of the best ways to plus EV. Map out how much money you're going to play this year. How much do you want to dedicate to this best ball? How much to DFS? And these can be great ways to be sustainable. And I'm telling you, you can be sustainable at PGA DFS. You don't have to be like all these people that guarantee winners if you follow my picks. Fuck those guys. Stay away from them. They're fucking a cancer to this industry, okay? You can do it. This is segment 3. Let's get back to Tambo. All right, I told you I'd be back with Tambo. I'm a man of my word. And yes, I saved PGA Showdown for last because, well, first of all, I created a show called the Showdown Hoedown, which, I talked about Showdown. And I don't want to be that guy that takes credit for helping grow Showdown, but I definitely have, because PGA Showdown has been growing. You can see it not only in how the contests are growing, but you can just see it in the number of people that are covering content for it. And so it's growing. It is awesome. It's a lot like NFL, right? You get off to a slow start at NFL. You go play that afternoon only. Well, think of Showdown Showdown as it like this. You have a bunch of guys miss the cut that week and you don't have any 6 of 6s in your week long, aka kicking the nuts, and you still want to enjoy golf and have a sweat for the weekend. This is where Showdown comes in, because we have it for every round, specifically round 2, round 3, and round 4, where it's a blast. So Tambo, I'm not going to introduce you again. I'm just going to jump straight into this. Is Showdown the best? Is it like I've clearly shown my cards. Where are your feelings? Are you a classic guy, a Showdown guy? They're the same. Where are you at?
I love Showdown. You said it at the top. You saved it for last. It's because you saved the best for last. It's a very common saying. We love that one. So I think that's the key here. To me, it's just everything that goes with it. I'm even a big fan of NFL Showdown. And earlier in the classic segment, you asked about sort of the difference, what you like about PGA or what makes it easy for people. That's part of the understanding as well. If you played NFL DFS, if your Sunday main slate didn't go well, you're probably jumping into the Sunday Night Football streets and you're playing a little bit different game, but it's still a ton of fun. It's easy to understand. It's easy just to set it, forget it, throw it in and be done, besides inactives. Same thing here. You'll know who made the cut for a round 3 Showdown, for example. So I love it. It's easy. And there's so many more factors, which I know we're going to get into, that make it so you can actually find an edge. That's how I think the difference here. And those who put in the work, AKA the sweaty tryhards, what we're known for, they get an even bigger edge because they go the extra mile and get the extra stuff.
Yep, I think if you can spend 30 minutes at night looking at tools and breaking it down, I think you can find an edge. Which Tambo's a professional, because he already teased where I wanted to go next. Where does the edge exist at Showdown? We already talked about it at Classic, but it's quite a bit different at Showdown. So where do you find an edge at Showdown? Because I know I've seen you win like a bajillion Showdown contests.
Yeah, appreciate it. That is the key about Showdown. So here's the interesting part. Again, I do the content myself, so I'm part of this group that we're trying to figure everything out for main slate. We got all these stats, and we're figuring out, okay, how many rounds are we going to take this over, and what type of courses, and all these different factors you can look at. But in the end, you really have no idea what's going on. It's a golfer. It's an individual sport. There's a mentality to it. There's life and personal things. And maybe they had a kid. Maybe they're going through a divorce. You never know anything. But one thing you do know in Showdown is you know what's going on after round 1. So I personally love, and I know you and I have gone back and forth on this, I love round 2 and round 3. I also love round 4, hence why we love this one. But my favorite round is actually round 2. And the edge to me is when you're looking at it, first of all, you have stats, which I know you're going to get into. Second of all, you're able to see, what others are kind of going to do. Like, oh, they're done with this guy now. There's no way that Jon Rahm or Rory McIlroy or someone who's really good could bounce back in round 2. Or they could, as your famous saying.
They could.
Right? And then on top of it, you also have what I love about round 2, and then I know you can talk about round 3, but I love that people like to protect their portfolio. And what I mean by that, I don't really talk about this as often, but sometimes on certain shows I'll mention it, is that people say, okay, I've already got Scotty Scheffler in my classic slate doing so well, I'm just going to fade him in round 2, even after he shoots a 7 under in round 1. And it's like, realistically, the ownership doesn't quite get to enough because it gets held in check, since a lot of people say, well, I'm good on Scotty because if he does good, he helps my main. Does he? You don't know what goes with those other 5 golfers, but I know for round 2, I'm only playing against round 2 people, round 2 players in this set game. So I'm fine with moving it in. And people do that with value plays and stuff. So a lot of edge to be found. And then, of course, weather, like we always talk about. I'll let you take it from there.
So, well, I'm going to kind of ask a similar question. Specifically, what are some factors you're looking for, round to round? Like for me, whenever I'm building my lineups, the first thing I'm looking for is I want to see guys on approach, because there's nothing more correlated to birdies, which we're chasing. Showdown, we just want birds, and maybe an eagle, and then we're dancing naked in the streets, okay? That is a little bit different game. We need birdies. We don't care about making the cut. We just need guys going nuke and making birds. So the thing most correlated to that is approach, and I want to see guys who are not only hitting good approach, but giving themselves multiple times to possibly get there, right? To possibly make those birdies. And you're going to do that by having good approach shots, right? Is there anything that you're looking for?
Certainly that. I also think it's how far do you want to take it? My thing is always telling people that you need to go to where everybody else will go to, which is looking at approach, and then be willing to go the extra mile, whether it's with your optimizer and you're taking an extra step, whether it's certain stats you're digging into. Well, in PGA DFS, specifically Showdown, my extra step here would be when I look at the approach, I'm also going to dig into a step further, meaning let me look here and see, was it on one hole that it was bad? And I go look on 15 of the 18 holes, they were dialed on approach, but on one hole, they went in the water twice. Well, guess what? They didn't actually play as bad as they, his approach was so bad, I could never go back to him. Well, here's the thing. His approach was actually great, but it was that one hole that it just took it away from him. So I'll deep dive, and that's where you can find your edge, because now you're going to find a player who's actually playing good golf. We have the stats, reflects to the public as not a good play and probably extremely low owned, taking all your factors we talked about earlier of ownership, projection, weather, stats. You can mix it all together and you can find yourself some pretty good options and then go to the next steps from there. So that's what I'm looking at.
Hey, Tambo, imagine there was something that had all this in one place. That thing would be called the Stone. And look at this. Like right here, if you want to know how frequently was this guy giving himself birdie looks, we got good approach on there. This is the Showdown Stone. I showed you the week-long one earlier. Okay, this is the Showdown. How often were they giving themselves, did they really hit good approach today? Here's their normal approach. But did they put one or two in the water and their approach was off today, but overall they hit it great? How about this one? How good are they historically in this round? Does this guy always kill round fours? That's one I love to look at because I'm telling you, some guys on Saturdays, they just say, fuck it, and they fire at every pin. They're like, I've made the cut, I'm going for it, and those guys score higher. So I love this historical round four. We let you know if guys had a good putting round, but not just like, you got to factor in, was it a good putting round versus how good they normally are? So should we expect some regression? Like when I see Denny McCarthy hitting good approaches, I'm playing him because you know that little hobbit can putt all day long. And this is like what we offer on the Stone. So if you're like, well, how am I going to know these stats? Not only are we giving you the stats, the projections, the ownership, we're breaking it down and giving you even more advanced stats that you can use to look at to make wise decisions when it comes at it. Tambo, I'm going to assume you've used the Stone once or twice.
Plenty, especially in Showdown. It really helps too. I think the obvious stuff is what you just talked about. You see their salary, you see their tee time, you see their ownership. These are all very important. The projections, their ceiling, the tap data, which I'm sure you'll talk more on, but it kind of fits to what I said already of where you can actually understand what their true approach is. It's not just that they were horrible. It was one hole. So you'll see how that can lean in your favor. But for me, the other thing I love is, I'm a big roster construction guy, is it's all right there. If you start to see, okay, the ownership shows here, I can almost build what the quote unquote optimal looks like. Of course, an optimizer, which we have, Shiptimizer, can do that for you as well. But I'm saying if I can start to see, okay, a lot of builds are going to look like this, but then I realize there's a couple guys at the top I wish I could get to. If only I could scroll down to the bottom and see the exact same leverage, high upside, good projection, good tee time, good true approach, all of those stats in one place. That's where I get comfortable with that. And that one extra move not only puts me in a similar projection, but puts me at lower ownership or leverage against the field, gets me some more studs or a extra stud up top, which could come in handy depending on the slate. And that's where you're seeing different constructions that we're finding our way to the top. And you see a ton of Ship It Nation logos at the top in Showdown. These are the best tools, bias or not, I don't care. This is everything you need in a one-stop shop that you could want to have in one place. It's got it all.
And if you feel like we're selling too much, I'm just telling you right now, the Stone is like the best tool out there. I just want you to know that. Like, if you want to know how people find success, which is the goal of this show, is to teach you how to become a sustainable player. I'm trying to demonstrate what I have done over these past several years and what I've got a lot of my members over at Ship It to do and how they've become sustainable players. I'm never going to be that guy that promises you're going to win $1 million or we win every single day. That's bullshit. And anybody who says that, you need to fucking run from. Okay, I'm here to try to make this fun and sustainable for you. And if you do that long enough, I promise you, you'll hit a big one in the long run. It's just a mathematical certainty. Stay alive until you hit a big one. All right, back to chatting. What are some what about from Classic? We're talking about kicking the nuts at the start of the show. What are some things from Classic that you could possibly bring over to Showdown to help you find success at Showdown, Tambo?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we just showed there and kind of rehashing and talking about a little bit throughout. But the big thing is what I said is like, Classic we talked about earlier, and it gets the most coverage, if you will, right? Everybody's got their shows for Classic and their picks and their plays and trying to figure out, and that's the fun in golf and PGA DFS of modeling and all that. But you don't really have any of that true information. You have the facts of the information. You can look it up and see the rounds and see exactly what they did, but you don't know how any of it will translate. You can take all of that into Showdown, to our point, use the Stone or whatever tool you're using to be able to show you now I can actually take it for what it's worth, small sample, but I have a much better feel. You can take your bankroll management and contest selection over. You can save some of your bankroll from the week long and say, I'm not as into this slate because I think it's going to be a good Showdown slate. So you can take that across. You can play in contests that make you more sustainable. This is you're famous for this and being able to explain to people, like you said, find contests that you can play in, give yourself a real shot, have the maximum entries, maybe if you can, if it's a 3 max or 20 max or whatever it might be, and then adapt to that slate. So there's a ton of different things that you can bring over. And then you can also bring biases. I want to just bring this for 2 seconds of, if everybody loved so-and-so, like I kind of talked about on the main slate, they probably will still love them on Showdown unless they have a really good first round. And then it's funny how quickly people change and they're like, oh, this guy can't do good again, or this guy won't do good again. And they're playing good. It all worked out people go against their thoughts on that, and I'm willing just to lean into it that much heavier. So I love Showdown for many reasons, but that's just another one and some of the things I would bring across from Classic to Showdown.
All right, new guy, what you need to know is there's this thing called Round 4 Showdown, which is the most popular because it gets the biggest contest from DraftKings, and that's what drives popularity. Let's just face the facts. But Round 4 has a slightly different format to it where there's finishing points, whereas the other 3 rounds do not offer the finishing points. So I want you to talk to me, Tambo, about Round 4, how and why you play it differently, and anything we need to know about it.
Yeah, so it is quite different for that factor. And I mean, obviously there's certainty to, certainly something to talk about when it comes to what people think the certainty is, because for example, you just said it. So if a $6,600 golfer is sitting in 13th place on the leaderboard and getting points attached to them for that, what ends up happening is so many rosters start with that in round 4, because that allows them to get the studs that are up there, usually better players, rise to the top. We've seen it plenty of times. Certain events, they don't, but for the most part, they do. The pricing reflects it, right? Pricing changes sometimes based on where people sit on the leaderboard and so on and so forth. So people go all in on, how many guys can I fit 1 through 10 on the leaderboard, because they know they're going to start with so many points. You and I and many others playing the game, which we always talk about, of the ownership game, or he could, like you talk about, we like our lineups on round 4 to start to the far left. We want them to end on the far right, but we're typically more willing to say, okay, we'll get a couple guys in from up top that we think can stay in this thing. And it's a lot of game theory to if this, then that. Even though it's an individual sport, it's like if the $6,600 golfer fails at 20% ownership, I've got 3 options around him. Well, yes, they're T33 or T21. They're not as good. Them going, the other person coming back likely leads to builds where there or someone around them is going up, and you can get different that way. So it's an ownership game, and you can't take those points too seriously because they don't count for anything until the round is over.
Here's the best example I give. 2 years ago at the Open Championship, John Rahm was just had a terrible Saturday. He's literally 20 shots out of contention, and starts out early in the morning, goes out, shoots a -8, an 8 under with a streak, bogey-free round. And the guy who ended up winning the $100,000 that day had him at 1.3% ownership. And the guy said, I didn't think I was going to get the best player in the world at 1.3% ownership, because at that time, John Rahm was the number 1 player, and he got him at 1% because nobody wanted to play John Rahm way down there at the back. And you know what? He outscored every other stud on the slate. And these are the kind of little things you can do at Showdown, where you can play the game, and people get so carried away at Showdown that you don't see it week long, that you can really play the game at Showdown more than you can at Kicking the Nuts. And the more you're playing the game and getting these big leverage spots, the more you're going to get rewarded for it. This is why I love Showdown more than Kicking the Nuts. But let me go ahead and tell you a secret. I fucking love them both, Bob. All right. I think that is it. Do you have any closing thoughts on Showdown?
Yeah.
You want to share?
One more, because we talked about the tools and all this stuff and everything, but the information, information factor that you just mentioned is the key focus here, right? I can't stress it enough. There's not many sports where you have the information that you can take over round to round. And it's not just about the stats information and the PGA player knowledge and where they sit on the leaderboard and all of that. It's the DFS information, which we're playing a game. We're playing DFS. People always ask, how can this person be so good at multiple sports, even though they don't play them or know anything about it? Guess what? Canada, I play almost no golf up here. A lot of snow. So my point, it has nothing to do with knowing PGA or any of these extra factors. Do those help? Sure. We always talk, I know ball, all these things, but it's more about knowing for DFS. And you just nailed it. Like in a round 4, the guy that's sitting T33 is got nothing to lose. They made the cut. They got their paycheck. They can only really improve their paycheck. You know how they do that? Fire away at pins, Bob, like you like to say. So they're going to actually take shots that are going to give you scoring opportunities. You know what the guy in 13th might be thinking and why he's a $6,600 golfer? He's not there that often. He tenses up. He gets worried. He's trying to protect the money and just sneak into whatever he can and maybe not get after it and win. And 25% of the field wants him, when we can get a 1% on guy that's just firing away, and we know he will because we have past history on it or have seen it. Maybe DGen's scorecard notes that or something along those lines. So my point being, information is key. You have all of it and more. The stone, the things we offer make it so much easier. But even from a DFS perspective, you have all the knowledge that you need.
All right. I can't imagine there's a person out there that doesn't know who Tambo is if you know who I am. But new guy, maybe you found us. You stayed around this long. Tambo, tell these people where they can find you and anything else we need to know about you.
At ToeTagginTambo on X. obviously with you, my partners, Hoop, the rest of our great team, Title, etc. over at Ship It Nation. We've got a good crew over there ready for the PGA season. And then DFSmastermind.com. You can check out as well if you want more process of my own stuff, taking some of these things and putting them into play. So a lot of fun doing this with you, man. I appreciate you having me on. You know, we're fired up for PGA DFS. It's going to be exciting.
I'm so excited. I feel like going out in the backyard and chunking some wedges right now just to get ready for the season. Well, there you have it, guys. I want to thank all my guests, Luke, Byron, and Tambo, for coming on and honestly giving some great advice, showing you where we can get a little bit of that EV in there, that expected value, looking for overlays in the right places, playing the game, getting the right tools, diversifying our portfolio, practicing being sustainable at this game. Come into PGA DFS with a plan this year, okay? It's 2025. Don't come in and just start randomly picking contests and just willy-nilly throwing money at it, and then by February, the wife sees the credit card statement and your ass is done. Don't be that guy this year. Have a plan in 2025. Bankroll management. Come in with what you want to play, like the different forms you want to play. Do you want to mix in some props this year? Do you want to play more Showdown? For me, I've played way more Showdown now than I play Classic kicking the nuts because I just win more at it, right? And if I'm going to get more value out of something, then I'm going to play it more because, you know, like I don't like to just burn money on fire. Call me a weirdo. So I hope this video has helped you. We'll have another one out next week where we preview it. Thank you for staying around this long. Come check out Ship It because we not only have all these tools I've shown off that are better than everybody else. Literally, we're the cheapest price out there. Nobody beats us. And even if they did, they would never offer you everything we did. Have a happy holidays, everybody. The big guy is out. Thank you for your time, you mother fathers.